Welcome to the San Gorgonio Chapter's Trail Talk series. My name is John St. Clair, and I am your Zoom host. And before we start with tonight's topic, which looks like we're getting a pretty good turnout for, I want to go over the rules. First of all, everybody mute themselves unless they happen to be the speaker. Uh, and if you have questions during the presentation, what we would like you to do is to put your questions in the chat section. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you should see some talking bubble icons and the word chat. If you click on it, a little box appears and it's going to go to everyone, and that's good. And you just type your question, and we will eventually answer all questions. And this way, if you type them in there, you're not going to forget them. But we don't want to interrupt the flow of the speaker. So Julianne and I will monitor that, mostly Julianne, and eventually your questions will get answered. So tonight's topic is Introduction to Backpacking. And next month, we have a very experienced desert backpacker who's going to give a presentation on I think it's called the Lost Miners Trail. And it starts in the Owens Valley, I think, and goes up and then into the Inyo Mountains and through desert type terrain. And she is a very, very, it's Stacy Goss is her name, I believe. And
Mhm.
she's a very accomplished desert backpacker, which is a special, very special kind of skill to have. So we've got actually two trail talks in a row that are going to be dealing with backpacking. Tonight's was going to talk about the basics, and then Stacy's is the specialized backpacking in the desert. So I think everybody is muted now. That's good. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to introduce Julianne Anderson. Julianne will introduce our speaker, and Julianne is co-chair of San Gorgonio Chapter Outings program, and she also is on the Trail Talk Committee, as am I and Carla Kellums, and she's also an outings leader and likes to do car camping outings and has some great ones scheduled for the summer and fall. So I'm going to take myself off the spotlight and turn it on over to Julianne.
Oh, thank you, John. Uh, just a couple of plugs before we introduce our esteemed speaker, Denise Allen. As John mentioned, we do have some wonderful car camps and backpacking trips and hiking throughout the summer. Our program is well underway and it is chock full. Just to let you know, our June 1st car camp has been changed. We had to change our venue. It was up at Lake Mary in the Mammoth Lakes. The Forest Service sent me a very abrupt cancellation because of snow, day before yesterday. So we have relocated to 1,000 feet lower to June Lake. We will be camping at the lovely O Ridge, U.S. Forest Service campground, overlooking beautiful June Lake and the alpine peaks surrounding the June Lake Loop. So our camping trip on June 1st will continue, but we will be in a different spot. And we will focus on the Mammoth Hot Springs, Inyo Mono Craters, the Mono Basin, and Bodie, as well as hiking Hot Creek, Inyo Crater, and the Fern Lake and the June Lake Loop. We'll choose from among those for our hikes, depending on conditions. So sign up, stay tuned. July 15th is our Sequoia Kings Canyon car camp, and I was just talking with Denise. We're going to be at the lovely Forest Service campground. Christina and I scouted it last year, Big Meadow. between the two parks and the Forest Service area. Slightly more primitive, no water, so you have to bring your own water, but clean and absolutely verdant and lovely. There's a creek running through this campground. I think it's Sequoia and Kings Canyon's best kept secret. We will be focusing on Kings Canyon this year, which is gorgeous. And then we'll be doing the Grand Canyon on September 1st, which is Labor Day, for 4 days. And we have campsite in the classic Mather campground on the South Rim. All three camping trips have 24 spots. We have room for 8 vehicles. So we have 4 spots, 6 people per spot, 2 vehicles per spot. So there's plenty of room. Sign up now and get going. Our backpacking trips are happening this month, or June rather. The Horseshoe Meadow trip with our esteemed Connie Burleson and Rachel Wilkin will be going up out of Lone Pine, out of the Horseshoe Meadow area, and it's going to be just gorgeous. And we're very much looking forward to that. And Denise, our speaker tonight, is leading the beginning backpacking trip up Devil's Slide in the Idlewild area on solstice on June 21st. So that will be happening. And then Carla Kellums is planning a Catalina Channel Islands backpacking trip for the fall shoulder season time, which will be stunning. And that is a whole different experience. So think about all of that. And then in terms of trail talk, we have the legendary Stacy Goss, who's a friend of our own legendary Joan Taylor, our conservationist. And Stacy, as John mentioned, will be talking about this really fascinating Inyo hiking trip. And so stay tuned next month. And then we've got our trail talks planned out through the summer. Um, July will be our own Carla Kellums on Car Camping 101. So stop by the Trail Talk in July for that. And Carla is always excellent. I will be handling the next three, and we will be tracking our camping expeditions. August will be the June Lake Loop, Mono Basin, and Mammoth Divide area. September will be Kings Canyon. It will be the Kings Canyon this year. And then October will be the Grand Canyon. So we'll have trail talks on all of those topics. So now that you know all that, I'd like you to direct your attention to our esteemed speaker, and I'm teasing her. We'll have to call her the Honorable. Uh, Denise is a former math and computer science teacher at Yucaipa Unified. She is also for many years, a professor at Crafton Hills of computer science, now retired, and for many years, 16 in fact, a member of the Yucaipa City Council. And for those years, she was mayor of Yucaipa. So she is the Honorable Denise Allen. And we are lucky to have her with us as a backpacking instructor because Denise is an experienced backpacker for many years. As she let me know, she started backpacking in her 20s, was on hiatus for a bit, and then renewed interest about 10 years ago with that movie Wild, which a lot of us have seen. I think sparked a lot of interest among many. So we are delighted to have our own Denise Allen helping to train us to safely backpack in the wilderness, and lovely to have your experience. So with that, the Honorable Denise Allen, take it away.
Okay, well, thank you. Um, so my goal here tonight is to hopefully get you all to strike an interest in backpacking and to not make many of the mistakes that I made when I started out backpacking, and share with you the things that I have learned in terms of gear and equipment and clothing and just basic trail, kind of how to approach the trail to keep you safe and warm and happy on the trail as you get out there. I like this little introduction about backpacking being an escape. You got to put everything you own on your back and get out there on the trail. I think this also is very true, and I think it's important to think about the fact that backpacking is like hiking, but on steroids. It does demand that you have physical endurance and a lot of mental resilience. You backpackers should not just, not have any hiking experience. In fact, they should be experienced trail hikers, and they have to be in excellent physical condition. So the first step in really getting out there and going is making sure you're getting yourself fit and you're doing training hikes. And I think somebody's going to field questions. So if you have questions along the way, just go ahead and post those.
Denise, I'm going to interpose one more thing that I
Yeah.
think our audience needs to know. Not only have you been backpacking generally, but Denise has completed the entire John Muir Trail, has led backpacking trips into the San Gorgonio Wilderness, and into the San Bernardino Mountains generally, has led trips up to the Ray Lakes Loop. So I think she's got some really fabulous experiences that she can fall back on as she informs us today. And a lot of us have done a little bit of backpacking here and there, but you've done, I mean, the JMT itself, you've done just an incredible amount. So I'm so pleased that you have had that experience.
Yeah, it was 220 miles and I was out there for 28 days. And halfway through the adventure, my hiking partner got carried out or hauled out in a helicopter. And so I ended up finishing the second half, pretty much from Muir Trail Ranch to Yosemite with just trail family.
Yeah.
Quite an experience.
Yeah.
So these are the things I'm going to cover as I go through this presentation.
Oh, you haven't shared your screen yet.
I haven't. How do I do that?
Down at the bottom, there's a
Okay.
share screen.
All right. Share screen. That would be not good. Share. Okay, I see that.
Yeah,
Share
yeah, share.
right there.
And did you click it?
Um, oh, it's in the Zoom thing, right? Okay. Here we go.
Well, usually I have my slideshow on the desktop.
I see it. Okay. Share screen. How's that?
Okay, now there we go.
You
And
want me to full screen it?
yeah, and start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. And then how's
Love it.
that look better?
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, that's what we want to see.
Okay. Sorry about
Brilliant.
that.
Not at all. We
Good
all
thing
do
I
it.
was a CIS professor.
Hey.
Hey. All righty. So back to the first screen then. Uh, that backpacking is often characterized as hiking on steroids. And again, you should be an experienced trail hiker and you have to absolutely be in excellent physical condition before you think about putting a 30-pound pack on your back and heading out there into the wilderness for extended period of time. So in terms of planning a backpacking trip, these are the things I'm going to go over: where to go, what to consider. And I'm going to use the trip that I'm leading on the 21st to kind of give you an idea about that. I'm going to cover what we refer to as the big three, which is your backpack, your tent, and your sleep system. I'll go over clothing, different kind of footwear, food, what I've learned about that, water, and hydration, your hydration system and filtering, cooking gear, and then just some additional essential gear, personal hygiene, first aid, how to actually pack your pack, prep and safety net, any additional considerations that I thought of. I have a slide that covers the 10 hiking and backpacking essentials because I think that's important. And then finally, the rules for leaving no trace, which is very, very important when you're out there. And then how to get ready for your trip. So those are the slides that I'm going to cover with y'all tonight. First of all, where to go and what to consider. When you're starting or beginning to, do backpacking, you should consider just sticking with a 3-season focus, May through maybe October. It's probably best to not go too far away from home in case you just decide that you just need to get out and get back home. A good way to start is to go 2 to 3 days as your initial experience. I think that keeping it at 8 miles per day initially is a good kind of a goal, with about 400 feet of elevation gain per mile. You're going to want to get any permits that are required. And I have, for the Sierra Nevadas, mostly you got to get those permits from recreation.gov. The San Gorgonio Wilderness is really easy to get permits for. I really like, there's an online tool, easy to find, easy to submit, and it's all done online. If you're going to go up into the San Jacinto area, you can either do a permit at the station before you go out, or you can send it in ahead of time. But the permits, you definitely need to carry them if you're going to go into the wilderness. You want to research your current trail conditions and absolutely know what the weather's going to be for the time that you're going to get out there on the trail. And I always check to see what the water availability is going to be along the route. I like to know because for me, I like to try to carry about 1.5 liters, 1.75 liters of water. Water is extremely heavy. And so I like to know how far I can go before there's going to be water, so I know how much water I need to carry. And there are apps that you can use that even then show you where the current water is. And the rangers typically will know as well if you call them ahead of time. Okay, this is what I'm going to do on the June 21st. We're going to go up to Taquit's Peak, and we're going to do that via the Devil's Slide Trail. I already have the route all figured out. I used All Trails to do this. That's a really handy app. And we will head out of the Devil's Slide parking area. One thing to consider if you're going to be in the wilderness areas, a lot of times you have to carry one of those wilderness, put one of those wilderness permits. What are they called? The passes, the wilderness passes that you buy from the ranger
The
station.
adventure pass.
The adventure passes. Yeah, you need to keep those in your windshield in your parked car.
Right.
They're required.
Right.
The interagency passes work too, but yeah. So we'll be doing that. It's an 8-mile out and back trail. So you see, we're not going to go too far. We're going to go out for 2 days, 1 night. We, over the course of the hike, will gain 2,300 feet of elevation, but we're not going to do that all at once. We're going to go up here on this trail. We're going to camp. So about here, we'll drop our pack, set up our camp, have lunch, and then we'll just day hike up to the summit. And then come back after our day hike, have dinner, and relax for the evening. And then we'll hike out this section of the trail on the next day. So break it up. And this total trail, if you did it in a single day, it would take you 4 hours, about 5 hours to complete. But again, we're going to do it in 2 days with overnight stay. And it's beautiful up here. If you haven't been up here to up this particular trail, the Devil's Slide Trail, is just gorgeous. I did just get my permit back. I had actually requested it when Connie and I were up there scouting this trail, and they did give us permission to hike wherever we want to, or to camp along the trail as long as we follow the rules. I got a nice letter from one of the rangers, so I'm excited about that because of a couple of great spots that I've kind of picked out for our stay. So in terms of essential gear, I like this little picture. I think it does have most of the items that you would want to think about bringing along on a hike. And I'm going to go over each one of these different items here you see on the screen and talk a little bit about each one of those. Sorry about my little dog there barking. So first of all, with your backpacking gear, you want to try to keep it light, keep it small, make sure that you can compress your items, and they have some pretty handy compression bags. Your pack should be no more than 20% of your body weight. For me, that means about 30 pounds or less. I always use a spreadsheet, and if anyone would like a copy of my spreadsheet, I'm more than happy to share that with you. I have all of my gear listed in there, and I have weighed every single item that I'm going to carry. And it just helps because then I know what my weight is, and if it starts edging up because I'm on a longer hike, that I know that some of my luxury items I can go without. So it really helps. I use a Google spreadsheet, but any kind of a spreadsheet works really well. Before you buy, I think it's a good idea to research everything, ask your friends, ask for help, try borrowing before you buy. And I always recommend that you buy quality because I think that in this case, it's true that you get what you pay for with backpacking gear. One of the things that is absolutely essential is that pack, and you want to make sure that it fits well. So that's the first of the big three. So the big three are the three things that typically will give you or be the most weight. But they're also very important to get right. The first thing is you want a very good fitting backpack. It should be 64 ounces or lighter. And I think that a 60-liter pack is probably plenty capacity for even a week out there in the wilderness. My pack's 60 liters, and I'm able to fit everything I need in that pack. If you get a bigger pack, you tend to take more stuff. And so, 60 liters seems to be good. But again, with a backpack, you want to make sure that it's good for you, it fits you, and can carry the gear that you need and feel comfortable with to make you feel comfortable and safe. I like good shoulder straps. I like to have the load lifters on the back of my backpack, the ones that you can pull down on so that you can change the load of the pack as you're moving through the day. A good thing about REI is they will fit you for free and give you advice. So you can go into REI, you can put on different packs, they'll load them up with these bags full of sand, and you can walk around in the store with those packs on and see what rides well on your back and give you an idea of what you could carry for 6-7 hours on the trail. I like to have a comfortable padded hip belt. I like also to have pockets on my hip belt because I like to have sunscreen and chapstick and some bug repellent in those padded hip belt pockets. Also, I like to carry a little bit of trail snacks in those pockets. But again, it's, whatever works for you. The next thing is a hydration bladder. Some people like them. I don't carry one because I like to know all of the time exactly how much water I have. And a hydration bladder, you can't always tell how much water you have in there or how much water you have left. But a lot of people like them. They like having that drinking straw coming over their shoulder, and they like having that hydration bladder tucked away inside of their pack. So, and then finally, you absolutely need a pack cover, or some people actually put trash bags inside of their pack to waterproof their gear. But pack covers are pretty inexpensive and very lightweight. And when it does rain, it's definitely something you're going to want to have. And up in the Sierras or up in the mountains, it's you never know when a rainstorm is gonna come in. So the second in the big three is a well-designed, comfortable shelter. Again, I put a weight kind of target in there for you. Probably if you can keep it at 48 ounces or less, that would be ideal. There's a lot of great brands of lightweight tents. And again, you can go to REI and you can see lots of choices. I typically will use a 2-person tent. A 1-person tent is a little too small for me. I'm not sure, but I've put 2 people in a 2-person tent. You're very, very crowded in there. If you hike with another person all of the time, you could possibly carry a three-person tent and then just share it. One person would carry the rain fly and the poles, another person would carry the ground tarp and or the footprint we call it, and the tent itself. So that's a good approach too. The only problem is that, for example, when I did the John Muir Trail, we were carrying a three-person tent. And when my friend went out, that was my whole load. I didn't have a choice. I had to carry that whole tent for the rest of the duration of the hike. And the people I ran into on the trail kept telling me I had my condo with me. So, that's also a consideration. It's really good to have them freestanding because, sometimes some surfaces you just can't you know, drive a stake into the ground, especially if it's pretty hard or it's a rocky. I've camped on actual granite before. No way could I get a stake into the ground. So freestanding is really a thing to think about in terms of a tent. You definitely want it to be double walled, so you have a separate rain fly and can put that on. Helps at night with moisture, but if the weather turns inclement, it's definitely a must-have item. The footprint underneath your tent, and if you buy one that goes with the tent, then the grommets are already there that will fit the poles for the tent. Finally, if you're really kind of adventurous, you could go with a hammock system. There's a lot of people I see out there on the trail now that are opting for a hammock in terms of their sleeping system, but you got to look at where you're going, make sure it's a okay thing. I use a hammock now, and that one kind of looks like my hammock. I have a rain fly and a tarp with it. And for me, it just makes for a cozy, comfortable night of sleeping. So I actually bought a hummingbird hammock, but I understand they are no longer in business. The last of the big three is your sleeping system. So you can choose a sleeping bag or a quilt. A quilt is essentially a bag that, and you can see a picture of one over here on the right. It completely unzips and it can turn into a blanket. Also, the difference is with a quilt, they only zip up about halfway on the bottom, and then they have little straps that hook into the top, two straps that hook in the top, and then they close up around your sleeping pad. But they're lighter weight, and I use a quilt now, and mine's rated to 0 degrees. So they do and can keep you quite warm. Down is the lightest. It's also the most expensive, but you can compact it down to a pretty small, form. And it is definitely warm, but you got to keep it dry. So you got to have a good tent with a good rain fly to keep that down bag warm. For the starting out, warmth rating should be 20 to 30 degrees. If you're going to stretch it and go into any kind of late fall season, you're going to have it be better than that. So that's why mine currently is a 0 degree bag. Then you want a sleeping pad of some sort. Some people like the inflatables and some people like the soft foam pads. I have always used an inflatable pad, and never have had a problem. But there is sometimes, they could have a hole develop in them, or sometimes the valves can fail. But I've never had a problem with my sleeping pads. You definitely want to have your system be comfortable and fit you, because you got to get a good night's rest, because you're pretty exhausted by the time you get to camp after hiking 8+ miles a day and going up and down and on the trail. And then finally, a lot of people will carry one of those little inflatable pillows. I carry one. I think that it adds to the comfort of sleeping, but this is really an optional item. Some people don't need them. They'll take their clothes and put them in one of their stuff bags and just make a pillow. And that will save some weight.
Denise, I'd like
Yeah.
to interpose some questions here
Okay.
while we're on these topics.
Please, because I can't see them.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think about sleeping bag liners? And how do you compress your down sleeping bag into, I mean, which seems big. I mean, they seem pretty big and puffy. How do you compress them down to your pack?
So, sleeping bag liners, I have a silk liner and it's actually really nice and it can add another layer of warmth for you. Um, so it's something to think about. Sleeping, they typically will just go inside of your sleeping bag and they're very lightweight. So it's something to consider. In terms of compacting the bags, most of the quilts or bags that you buy will come with compression stuff bags. So some of them have like little compression straps on the side, and you stuff the bag in there, and then you pull on these straps on either side of the bag, and it compresses it down pretty well. So it's pretty easy. I think my sleeping bag is probably about this big once I have it all stuffed.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
it compresses down to a pretty small size once I have it done
Okay.
and stuffed.
We've got another question. Maybe you should explain what the temperature ratings of sleeping bags really mean.
Well, that means that they can't, you're not going to freeze in that bag if it gets down to 30 or 20 degrees,
Right.
but you're going to be cold. So if you sleep cold, you probably want a bag that's going to keep you warm. Like a 0 degree bag, you're going to be warm when it's 20 degrees. When it's 0 degrees, you're probably not going to be warm, but you're going to be okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Um, a few, thank you for that question, John. A few other questions about prior topics. Checking the weather in wilderness areas. Is it best just to rely on rangers? Are there other means to check weather at high altitude in some of these wilderness areas?
Well, a lot of people on the trail I see are carrying Garmin's,
Okay.
and Garmin's will provide you with weather updates.
Okay.
Yeah, my InReach Mini will provide me with weather updates.
Okay.
Um, and you should absolutely know before you go out what the weather is. But if you're out like I was for 28 days, I also, the other thing that I have done is that in the Garmin, you can send and receive text messages.
Mhm.
And some of the iPhones will do that as well now. And so you can ask people that are at home even to look up the weather for you where you're going and say, is there any weather forecasts or anything that you can see in the weather updates for where I am or where I'm heading? And my Garmin tracks me as well, so they can see exactly where I am on the trail. I keep the
Mhm.
tracking on when I'm out there. And so that's another thing I have done. I have asked for my contacts that I'm sending updates to. I'll just send them a quick text message and say, hey, the clouds are looking kind of bad. What's the weather? Can you see if there's any weather forecast where I'm in my area?
Okay.
So
Same thing for water availability. Are you reliant on rangers to tell you if things have dried up, especially later in the season, or is there any other means of checking that?
there are apps that you can use to check um, the water availability. I think Gaia is one of them, and Far Out is another one where people will post updates in real time. Like, if you use Waze, kind of like the same thing, but for hiking. And people will actually post you can see them in Far Out's a pretty nice app and it will tell you how the water is on the trail. But if you're just going to go out for a week, I would definitely give the rangers a call and ask what the water situation is on the trail that you're going to be hiking on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Couple of just tangential questions. In your one of your initial slides, you had, all the gear arranged kind of in one slide. Lighters versus matches. Both? One or the other? What do you
I,
prefer?
I carry both, but my little Bic lighter, sometimes it doesn't work at altitude. So I
Mhm.
always have matches as well.
And
And
regular matches or those expensive safety matches?
I use waterproof matches.
Okay.
Yeah. And I always want to check them before I go out to make sure that they're working.
Okay.
But yeah, I use those, and sometimes the strike plates on those, it seems like there's more matches than the life of those strike plates. So sometimes you make sure you check the actual strike plate on the on the side of those box of matches, because they can wear out before you've actually consumed all of the matches.
Right.
And sometimes the igniters don't work on the stoves. It's just, you
Yeah.
always want to have some matches.
Yeah.
They're a brilliant invention.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Other questions here. What about when do you start packing your pack? You're talking about the big three and you're talking about your spreadsheet. You start packing up a couple days before, a week before. What's your method?
For me, I start gathering my gear the week before, and then I'll pack my pack probably 2 days before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That way, in case you have an emergency or you've forgotten something.
Yes, I can get it.
Yeah. And then a very interesting question.
Food's a different issue, but I'll talk about that when I get to the food slide.
And what about etiquette in camp? Do you want to talk about that now or do you want to talk about that further on?
Um,
Leave no trace plus
yeah, I've got that on that slide, so probably when
yeah,
we get there.
other etiquette in camp.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it for the questions here. Lots of
Good.
interesting questions.
Okay, keep them
Okay.
coming.
Yeah.
And I think questions, well, when you have them, post them, because that's the best time to learn.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, so how about clothing? Very important. I think that layering, of course, is the key. Cotton's no good, so you want some kind of moisture wicking fabric. For me, I like capilene. That's my go-to material for my base layers. For your undergarments, I always carry one or two extra pairs of my little underwears. And for my long underwear, I do carry a long sleeve base layer, both that and my long sleeve bottoms. They're capilines and they are very nice to put on. And I sleep in those. So they're also my PJs. A mid layer, uh, my mid layer, what I do for a mid layer is I use a down vest. But some people like a smart wool and they'll have a smart wool mid layer and use that. And then for your jacket, definitely I like my down jacket. I have a hood on it, so I don't have to bring an extra little beanie. But if it doesn't have a hood on it, you want to make sure you bring a beanie because it can get cold at night up there at the altitude. A really nice thing I bought probably about 3 years ago is a pair of down pants. I love these things, and that's because I don't like to be cold. But they're made by a company called Montbell, and the down is sewn into them in little triangles, so they're very high quality, and they do keep me nice and warm at night. And then I put down booties as well in the slideshow here as a consideration, but because a lot of people I've hiked with, their feet seem to get cold at night, and there's nothing they can do to get those feet warm. What my one friend ended up having to do was carry those hand warmers, and so she just carried 3 or 4 sets of those hand warmers, and would put those in her down at the bottom of her sleeping bag at night to keep her feet warm. Um, Gloves, definitely a lightweight pair of gloves, a good thing to have. And again, if you're down jacket, or some people just like to have a beanie anyway, even if their jacket has a hood. I really like the zip off hiking pants. I tend to hike with long pants and don't typically don't zip them off because I like the protection on my legs, but they can double as shorts when it gets really hot. So they're they're a handy item. I always wear a long sleeve hiking shirt. It's the best sun protection you can get. So I wear one of those long sleeve lightweight hiking shirts. Essential gear, always bring, oops, sorry. Oh, okay, hold on. Essential gear you always bring is a rain jacket and pants. They are, you never leave those behind. Again, you just never know when the weather's going to turn, and you're going to want that rain jacket and those rain pants if the weather does turn into inclement rainy, afternoon. So, extra pair of socks, always bring an extra pair of socks just in case, you end up stepping in water and, your socks get wet. That can end up causing blisters, and you don't certainly want that when you're hiking. Sun hat and hiking gloves, I use both of these. I have a pair of hiking gloves and really good sun protection. And then finally a bandana. And excuse me. I always wear a belt as well. So, do I have any questions about this slide?
Yes. So basically what you're saying here, Denise, is you're wearing pants, shirt, kind of mid layers. You're wearing what you're going to have the whole trip, pretty much. And then you have like the extra pair of underpants. Then you have some sleep items, the beanie, the down booties if you're cold, down pants if you're cold. And then your layers of outerwear, your down jacket, your rain jacket, your shell, that kind of thing. But you're basically wearing your clothes the whole trip, right?
Well, for me, I'm wearing my hiking pants.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wearing my long sleeve hiking shirt.
Mm-hmm.
I am wearing my hiking gloves, and I typically will have my bandana either around my neck or through a loop on my belt,
Yeah.
on my pants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're
Other
not we're not
stuff extra.
carrying a suitcase here. We don't have a lot of extra clothes. Everything is
No,
used every day.
yes. Some people, if it's really cold, some people will wear their long underwear underneath their shirt and their hiking pants. But typically, when you're hiking, you get pretty warm pretty fast. So I would leave my down jacket in a location I can grab it if I get cold, and not have the long underwear under my hiking garments. Keep that for camp.
Um, and we've got a very interesting question here, and I know you're going to talk about this about the person is writing, "Hi, recently heard of soft Ursack bear resistant sack is not allowed at certain elevation, but could not find further info on the web. Can you comment more?" Do you want to talk about the Ursack when you're talking about the bear canisters?
Sure, and I have that on my slide.
Okay, so the Ursack will be addressed.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question. Um, okay, let's move on.
So how about footwear? A lot of people that you see out there on the trail now are using trail runners or lightweight boots. I think that you don't see as many people using the heavy boots anymore. One thing I have found that's really a smart idea is to get those boots about a half size larger, because then as you're doing the downhill part of your hike, your toes won't be being, slammed into the front of the boots, and it'll save your toenails. I happen to use the Ultras, the Lone Peaks. They're very lightweight shoes. I have for long distance hiking, I use the RSMs, which are waterproof. And they have worked really, really well for me, but I have very wide feet. The thing about boots is that you got to put them on your feet. You got to try them. You got to walk around. And again, REI will let you do that at their store. They even have a really cool platform at REI that's got an inclination on it. And you can stand on that and see how your toes feel at the end of the shoes as you are considering those boots. So, you just have to have a pair that works really well for you. I wore those boots, the same pair for the entire length of the John Muir Trail, 220 miles, and I never got a single blister. In terms of socks, I was wearing a silk liner with a wool sock over that, and it worked really well for me. The silk liner tend to pull the moisture away from my feet, and And then I carried an extra pair of both silk and wool socks and would just wash them in between. I also carry a light river shoe or a light pair of sandals. Mine kind of look like this pair. And I just carry a little pair of toe socks for camp. And they work really well because you need something if you're going to do a stream crossing. And so they kind of double duty. They'll work well for a stream crossing when you can't get your boots wet, and then also as you're just relaxing around camp. Okay, so how about food? So somebody asked the question about bear
Um,
canisters. Go ahead.
we did have a couple of questions
Uh-huh.
before we get into the very important food topic.
Yeah.
About boots and particularly about your feet and grooming and toenail care before the trip. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's essential to do. Yeah, I always go get a pedicure before I go out on the trail. I want those toenails very short. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Thoughts on waterproofing treatment of your boots and thoughts on sock liner versus no sock liner.
I use a sock liner, but again, it's something that you have to try out and see what works for you. And I like the silk liners. They've just been foolproof for me. I've never gotten a blister, and I've put a lot of miles on my feet. So I'm not gonna switch it because it works for me.
Mm.
But I hike with friends that don't use double socks, and it works well for them. So it's just one of those things where, one size doesn't fit everybody.
And
So
on multi-day trips, when you're washing things like socks, do you just hang them on your pack and let them dry in the sun on your
yes,
back as you
yeah.
go along?
Yeah, I tend to do it when I get into camp, take my socks off and wash them out. And you can use Ziploc bags, work really well for that. Those gallon Ziploc bags, just carry a couple of those, and they work really good for washing just little socks in. And then you can just hang them up on your tent or hang them up on a tree, and then they're pretty dry by the next morning. But yeah, if they're not, you just strap them inside of a bungee cord or something on your pack, and away you go.
Okay.
Want to get as much water out of them as possible because yeah, that water weighs a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so in terms of your food, I always look for things that are high calorie versus the weight. So I'll read the back of the packaging and see how much it weighs and how many calories I can get out of that meal. For breakfast, I typically will have a little cup of coffee and then either oatmeal or granola, and maybe some kind of maybe a power bar. But also, it's a good idea to carry some kind of electrolyte. Some people carry like little tablets, or they'll carry just a little powder for their electrolyte. Some people actually, you can buy electrolyte tabs that are just, you just swallow them. But it's a good idea because you can be losing a lot of electrolytes as you're hiking. Um, in terms of lunches and snacks, you know, I tend to go easy. I tend not to have cooked food for lunch. What I found is really, I don't know, it just, for me, it's very delicious is to get those tuna fish in the foil packages that already have the spices and stuff in them, and then just carry a tortilla and make, tuna fish wrap for lunch. Not a lot of calories in that packaged tuna fish, but it certainly is very tasty. And I also like to mix up my lunches because if you're just eating the same thing every day, it can wear on you. And then finally for dinner, again, I always use the freeze-dried meals. I've found that they're getting to be very tasty. And what I do with all of my meals that I'm going to heat up and cook, I repackage all of them in those quart-sized freezer bags. And the reason I do that, I read something before I went out on the John Muir Trail, and they suggested doing that. And they are so much better in terms of being able to compact them into that bear canister when they're in these freeze-dried bags. You can just squeeze a whole lot into that bear canister. And if you're out there for 7, 8 days, you're going to fill that bear canister on the out. The serving packages, a lot of them will say that it's a 2 serving package, but for me, it's not. A 2 serving package is really my meal for the night. And the amount of calories will be about 900 for one of those. And when you consider how many calories you're burning in a day of hiking, it's kind of hard to carry enough calories to actually offset what you're burning. So I really do look for high calorie foods. Again, this is the coolest thing I think I learned was to just repackage your food in these quart-sized freezer bags. You heat up your water, you throw the water in that freeze-dried, in that quart-sized freezer bag with your food in it, and it will rehydrate really nicely for you. And then it's easy to clean up after you're done having your meal. Same with hot oatmeal in the morning. Yeah, somebody asked, I have a BV500 bear canister. That's what I have carried. I also have what's called an sack, and these sacks have been tested with all different kind of bears and have withstood the bears trying to compromise the sacks. There are areas in the Sierra Nevadas where you cannot bring sacks, so they're not allowed. Kings Canyon is one of them. I definitely Yosemite. You can't carry an sack anywhere in Yosemite. And what you can do is on their website, you can go to their website before you go out, and they will give you a list of all of the approved bear canisters for the area in which you are going to be hiking. And so you definitely want to check that to make sure you're in compliance. Now, when I went up, I did the Continental Divide Trail in Colorado. They allowed the sack up there. And so it just depends on the area that you're heading to, what kind of a bear canister you have to carry. But you absolutely need to carry something that is animal proof to keep your food in. Squirrels, birds, you have to keep that food away from all of the animals that are out there. Once that food is compromised, you can't eat it. And so you want to make sure that animals cannot get at your food. So questions about that?
Yeah, questions about electrolytes to start with. Talk about what brands you use, tabs, powders. What do you prefer?
I use those nun tabs. That's what I use. And I also use those what are those called? Let me see. I got one. Hold up.
Okay.
I use these Cliff Blocks.
Okay. Nice.
I really like these, and I'll just eat a couple of these on the trail as I'm hiking, and they really work well for me. But those are the two I use, the Nun Tabs and the Cliff Blocks.
Another question just came in from Marianne Reese. How about peanut butter, hard cheese, and dry salami? What are your thoughts on that?
I think if they're all good. I mean, I like to carry the little that you can get these little round packets of peanut butter,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to use dry fruit and just scoop the peanut butter out of those little
Mm-hmm.
packages. The only thing is anything that has water in it weighs.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that you're weighing your food and you know what you're carrying, because anything that's not dried is going to weigh more.
Right.
So the sausages, they're pretty heavy
Mm-hmm.
items, but sometimes, like when I was halfway through the John Muir Trail, we stopped at Muir Trail Ranch, and they had one of those sausages in the trail containers, the giveaway trail containers, and that was the most tastiest piece of food I think that I'd had for, it felt like I'd had for a month. So,
I'll bet. Yeah.
yeah. So, in terms of food, what I learned from hiking is that it's important to bring things that you're going to enjoy. A lot of times you get up to altitude and people lose their appetite. So I've seen people can't eat for, they can't eat for a couple of days.
Mhm.
So, and you just want to make sure you have food that is you're gonna be able to consume because you need the calories and that's your power to keep you going.
Now, I've hiked with folk that like to have a combination of the freeze-dried, ready-made meals like you get at REI, and then they add like fresh sugar snap peas, for the first night, or they add something like a fresh vegetable to, just to have a balance. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that planning your meals is really important in terms of what works for you.
Hmm.
Yeah, the freeze-dried meals work perfect for me.
Hmm.
And for me, they're very satisfying,
Yeah.
but some people don't like them. And so again, it's not, one
Yeah.
thing for everybody.
Right,
You
right.
got to figure out what works for you. And I would just start. I mean, this is beginning. And if you're going to just be a couple of days out, beginning, keep it simple.
Hmm.
Try a couple of things. Don't get too complex. And as you learn and as you add, you can add more things or mix things up a bit more.
Yeah.
I did find that carrying a Snickers bar, it somehow is delicious when you're out there on the trail. A little bit or some peanut M&Ms.
Hmm.
It's like a nice little treat. So
Yeah.
candy definitely is, chocolate is, you got to make sure you keep it out of the sun and out of the heat, but it can be very rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
a
a
lot of
question just
people like jerky, but you know, yeah, jerky. So
question just came in. Do you know if Ursac is allowed at the Talkett's Trail we're going to?
yes,
Okay. The answer is
yes,
yes.
yes.
Okay.
hmm I carry it in when I go to San Gorgonio and San Jacinto, I carry my Ursac. It weighs half a pound
Nice.
and it ties up really nice and tight, and I've never had a problem with animals with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of water hydration, the first rule is that I like it, I bolded it here. No matter how good the water looks, unless you don't have a water filtration system, I mean, sometimes there's that, but you never want to drink unfiltered water. I typically will carry two of these smart water bottles and then I have one of these. This is my go-to filter. I have a Be Free.
Mhm.
I like the Be Free. Most of the people on the trail you see on the trail, they're either carrying the Sawyer, which is this one, and it screws onto the top of a like a smart water bottle, or they're carrying the Be Free. You, if it's a bigger group, you'll see sometimes people will carry a gravity fed water filter like this. And I started with one of those, but ended up not using it on the John Muir Trail. We ended up taking the Be Freeze. But if you're in a larger group of people, you can carry one of those, split up the pieces, and then when you get to camp, you can gravity feed your water for your meals. This is a little pump, little heavier. Of course, this is one of those steri pins that uses UV light to purify the water. And this is one of those life straws, which is a good idea to bring as just a backup or a safety in case something happens to your water filter. But this looks like a grail, I think, in this picture. You wouldn't typically carry one of those out on the trail because they're pretty heavy, but I take those internationally to filter water. I
Mhm.
use the Be Free because the opening on the top of the Be Free is pretty wide and it's easy to get the water into the container, into that little rubber container. And then you just squeeze it into your smart water bottle and it filters really well. Sometimes the filter will get clogged, but I found if you soak it in a half vinegar, half water solution, it opens it right back up.
Okay. Question.
Yeah.
Um, do you carry the iodine pills, the Aquapure pills, just as your emergency backup and your 10 essentials, you know.
I do carry some backup in my pack of the iodine tabs,
Yeah.
but I've never had to use them.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do carry them. And then this is a really handy little container. I carry one of these as well. Um, and when I get to camp, I'll go down to the water source and filter 2 liters of my smart water bottles. And then this will carry for me, it's another 2 liters. And then it's plenty of water for camp. So it's a really handy little roll up, water container to use once you get to camp.
Right. Right.
You want to drink 2+ liters of water every day.
Mhm.
And electrolytes, you can put them inside of one of your little containers. Or like I said, just bring electrolyte tabs. These again are the different type of purification systems, and then the collapsible, bottle.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. How about cooking? So what I've done for cooking is I actually have a jet boil stove, and it's amazing how fast this little jet boil stove with one of these little fuel canisters will boil that water and get it hot enough to rehydrate my food. I mean, it happens, the speed at which it boils water is really pretty mind-blowing. But I've found that one of these little canisters will last me about 6 days. 2 people, you probably need 2 of them over a 1 week time frame. What you can buy online now too, I just discovered, I think they're going to stop selling these because of the waste factor, but you can buy these little gadgets. I found one on Amazon that will move gas from a larger container into those smaller containers. And so you can just keep the smaller containers and then buy the larger containers to refill them with. But I'd read something where they were going to stop producing this particular size, but these are nice because they fit right inside of the jet boil container. And then the little feet fit inside, and then this heating unit fits inside of this. So it compacts down really nicely. The Again, I rehydrate my food into the quart size freezer bags, and then I have one of these little insulated bags, and then I drop the quart size freezer bag inside of this so that it's insulated and can stay hot as it's rehydrating. And at altitude, if it says it takes 20 minutes to rehydrate that meal, it's probably going to take twice as long. It takes a lot longer at altitude to get that food rehydrated than it says on the packaging. So that's the food warming bag. You can make your own. This is just that insulating material that goes around like a water heater, and then some duct tape on the side. And it's just folded over on the bottom. You can buy them, but pretty inexpensive to just make your own. I think a long-handled spoon or spork is a really nice item. The shorter ones don't work as well if you're using the quart-size freezer bags with this system, but those long-handled spoons work really well to eat right out of that little pouch there. Again, I already mentioned lighter and waterproof matches for lighting this stove, but these stoves typically have a little button on the side that lights them. If you're using one of those MSRs, those little small pocket rocket stoves, then you will have to have something to light those with. I carry a lightweight cup. Mine's a titanium cup, and that's the only thing that I typically will put food in, is my lightweight cup. I never put food in. My jet boil is only for boiling water. I do bring biodegradable soap. I use those ones that are in the little packet that are like dry sheets, and they're really handy for cleaning your socks too. And then hand sanitizers. Hand sanitizer is a must have. I actually carry that in my hip pocket of my backpack. And always sanitize your hands before you do any food cooking. you want to make sure you don't have any bacteria or anything left over from your bio breaks as you are getting ready to cook or eat your food. And then I also carry a couple of spare quart-size Ziploc bags, and I just use those to put all of my trash in, because whatever you carry in, you got to carry out. And even when I went on group backpacking trips with the Sierra Club, it was amazing how much food people could eat when the alternative was to carry that food out. So, yeah, but the 2 to 3 Ziploc bags for your trash seems to be plenty enough for keeping all your trash and from all your meals stowed away. And then those would have to go in your bear canister too, because anything that smells has got to go in that bear canister. So here's a list of essential other gear that is worth mentioning.
Joan or
Go ahead.
Denise, we just got a question in about your last slide.
Uh-huh.
Um, what's the make and weight of the roll-up 2-liter container?
Oh, it's, if I could, if this wasn't on my full screen, I could pull up my spreadsheet and look at it, but I'm sure that it's maybe 4 ounces.
Okay. Do you know the make of it or?
No,
Okay.
I'd have to look at my spreadsheet to see,
Okay.
or pull my gear out.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a 4-ounce item. Okay.
Yeah. It looks just like the one in that picture though, so yeah. Okay, so hiking poles, a lot of people that I see on the trail are hiking with hiking poles. Some tents now, the hiking poles are actually the tent poles. So, and then they would be something you'd absolutely have to have. A handy tip and a handy trick is to take some duct tape and wrap them around, 5, 6, 7 times around the top of the poles, right below the handles. Wrap the duct tape right there around those poles, and then you have your duct tape if and when you need it. And duct tape's amazing stuff. And I've actually found all kinds of uses for it out on the trail. Somebody, we were talking the other day, actually had to use it to secure the bottom of a shoe
Mhm.
because it had come unattached from the shoe, the sole of the shoe. You definitely want a headlamp. Mine's rechargeable, so I bring a spare battery pack. And but if your headlamp isn't rechargeable, you want to bring spare batteries for it. A lot of a headlamp with a red light option is a really nice thing, especially walking around camp at night. A bug net, handy item to have, very lightweight. And you can put those in your little pocket of your backpack or in your hip belt if you have those. And with the bugs get very annoying, you can pull that out pretty easily. And so you're not swallowing a bunch of gnats as you're hiking or mosquitoes. I carry one of those little Gerber multi-tools, very small. Mine has scissors on it, but a small knife or a multi-tool is a really handy item to have. Again, hand sanitizer. I'll probably say that 3 or 4 times, and matches and lighters as well. I carry a teeny small sewing kit, has a needle and some different kind of thread in it, and I think I got it at a hotel. It was one of those hotel restroom kits or something, one of those teeny little ones. But it's come in handy. Definitely, I've used that. Button comes off and you can repair it pretty easily. I do carry tenacious tape, just a little roll of it for any kind of nylon or ripstop nylon that might get a little tear in it or in your down jacket, or that tenacious tape works really well to patch those holes. Spare cord, I carry a little bit of spare cord. It's very handy. I also always carry a little spare cord, and I put these little um, paper clip, those little that look like bag clips on it, and it doubles as a clothesline. So a storm whistle. Oh, I was going to put a picture of one of those in here. Didn't get around to that, but a storm whistle is an excellent device. Sierra Club, when I've gone on trips with Sierra Club, they always give me whistles. Whistles are a very good safety device. You want one that doesn't have one of those little balls in it because if it gets cold, those can freeze up. But they told a story about a gal that got lost out in the wilderness on one of the Sierra Club hiking trips, and she was saved because she was blowing a whistle, and that's how they were able to find her. And so good idea to have a whistle, and those storm whistles are actually really nice. I carry my Garmin InReach Mini. Um, I already talked a little bit about that. I think it's an excellent device. Mine interfaces with my telephone, and then I can send messages right from my phone through the GPS system. I also have been playing with my iPhone. It now has GPS built in. When I was out in Joshua Tree back in March, I was able to send and receive messages on the GPS network from my iPhone. And that's amazing, and it's probably only going to get better. I always carry a compass and a map of the area that I'm going to because, sometimes navigation or cell phones can fail. So you always want to have an area map and a compass because, that might be what your life depends on, is being able to navigate your way back to a trailhead or back to a ranger station or whatever else, another pass. I've been out on the trail and a fire has come up and we've had to reroute our desk, where we're heading to get off the trail. And so your plans change and you better have a plan for getting rerouted. I always carry my cell phone. It's my camera. And again, I have that backup battery and a charging cable so that I have that available at all times. One handy trick, I keep my Wi-Fi and my Bluetooth off, and I keep it in low battery mode and in airplane mode. And it just helps to conserve the battery. Also, don't forget your car keys. And actually, I was up on a trail. I was hiking Zanja Peak and ran into some people up there, and they had left their car keys in their car, and they were doing a one-way route. So they didn't have the car keys for the car that they dropped off at the start point because they left them in the car at the other end. So always have your car keys, your permit. I always carry my driver's license and my medical ID card and a little bit of cash and a credit card. Are we good?
Denise, a question about the Garmin.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about the Garmin InReach Mini? How much does it cost?
They're
Is it
about $350, and I think my monthly subscription runs about $10 a month.
okay? And how long does it take you to learn how to use it?
It's really easy. It's
Okay.
really easy to use. I started out with a little bigger one, but I really like the InReach Mini. And the nice thing is, since it works with the phone, I can just log onto my phone and I can type messages on my phone. I have 3 preset messages on my InReach. I send out a message when I'm leaving on the trail in the morning. I send out a message when I get to camp at night. And then my third one is for when I'm all done hiking and I'm back at the car. And those preset messages are just free and unlimited. And if you want to send additional messages, I just go into my phone, type up the message and hit send. And your Bluetooth has to be on to do that, but it works really well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you can receive messages back as well.
And you said that people can track you when you have
Yes.
your Garmin on.
Yes. But you have to enable the tracking feature. It's not enabled by default, but it's just a couple of clicks on the side button and you can change the interval that it sends out your updates as to where you are on the trail. But it certainly has given peace of mind to my family members that are, back at home because they can keep track of where I am and how I'm progressing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's important. I think I always, when I get to camp and I'm done for the day, I'll send a little message update that says I'm at camp, settling in for the night. And it's, they appreciate that. And then in the morning when we're getting ready to heading out on the trail for another day.
Right.
Yeah. Just to keep people aware of the fact that you're safe
Yeah.
and progressing.
Yeah.
In terms of personal hygiene, I've already said it, but hand sanitizer, always keep that with you. I have a very small trowel that I use. When you have to take care of your business, you want to make sure you're getting a good hole 6 to 8 inches deep for your poo. Just be aware that TP or wet wipes, you must pack them out, so you can't bury them. I grabbed one of these to show you, but I have one of these, which is a little smell-proof bag. And I just put a dryer sheet inside of this bag, a couple of dryer sheets. And I buy these on Amazon. The brand is HG. And they work really well to keep your, your TP or soiled wet wipes in, and then you just roll it up and it's perfect. And I'm able to use one of these for a week. And I think actually they're made, they're definitely smell proof bags. So, and they work really well. So you want to avoid, well, if you're going to get out there, first rule always is if you do, and you're hiking with a group of people and you do have to, and you need a bio break, you need to let somebody know. Leave your pack at the trailhead and then walk off of the pack without your pack away from the trail. And try to stay away from a brush because you don't want to stumble onto any snakes or anything like that. And always though, leave that pack with somebody on the trail, so that they know where you went off trail. And then when you are done with your business, just cover it up and try to make it look like, you were never there. Because the leave no trace is important no matter what you're doing out there. In terms of, women out there on the trail, I have and carry what's called a little Kula cloth. It's a little antimicrobial pee rag. And I learned about those actually when I was down in Peru. I just thought that was the most amazing thing, but you use it instead of toilet paper. And after you pee, you just use that to dab up, your private parts, and it works really, really well. And you can find them on Amazon now. They have, it's not the Kula brand, but they do have other brands that they're selling. And another thing for women, I also carry little panty liners, and they're just really a good item to have because, the last thing you want to do is get a bladder infection when you're out there in the wilderness. And I've just found panty liners are a real nice thing. And I wish somebody had told me about those before I went out on the John Muir Trail because, but I carry them now all the time. Other items for your, sundries bag and lightweight toothbrush. For toothpaste, I actually use toothpaste tabs as opposed to toothpaste in a tube. You can buy toothpaste tabs online and they work really well. So that's what I use. Any of the meds you need, eye drops it's amazing how dry your eyes can get out there on the trail. The dust, just the dry air at altitude. Sunscreen, definitely, you want to have that. Chapstick. I carry a little small brush, insect repellent, and again, biodegradable soap. Do you have any questions? We're good.
Not right now. We're good.
Okay, good. In terms of first aid, I have a pretty small little compact first aid kit, and I have been carrying that for a while. You need to have your own little first aid kit with enough supplies for however long you're out there. I have Band-Aids, sterile wipes, all of these things, gauze, some antiseptic ointment. Moleskin is really handy. I haven't had to use it myself, but I have given it to other people on the trail. And then I do carry an ace bandage because you just never know, a twisted ankle, something like that. It can come in handy. Any I do carry pain meds, so I'll carry some Tylenol and some ibuprofen and some allergy meds as well. You can buy them from REI. I bought my first aid kit from REI. And then as I've used the stuff, REI actually sells these resupply. You can buy them at REI. They're just resupply packets. And so you can put in and replace the things that you've used from those resupply kits. So you don't have to buy a whole new first aid kit. You're going to see hand sanitizer again. So if you got to do any type of first aid when you're out there, you want to make sure your hands are sanitized before you touch or tend to an open wound. You also want to know how you're going to contact EMS if you have to. When my friend went out on the JMT, and it's happened twice now on trips I've been on where people have had to been airlifted out. Know how to use the SOS on your emergency device. The SOS on the Garmin, it worked flawlessly. We hit that SOS button, got a message from the nearest support station. The ranger was up at our area. It took him about 20 minutes to get to us. Assessed my friend, said, yeah, you can't hike out. And then they called in a helicopter to airlift her out. So, know what you're going to do if an emergency situation does arise. Good idea to take a first aid CPR course. They even have wilderness first aid courses that you can sign up for. Always plan for the what ifs, and then check and restock your first aid kit prior to each trip.
Questions? Should all your toiletries be unscented or only if you are in bear country?
Should they be what? Sorry.
Unscented.
Well, unscented's a great idea. I would absolutely suggest that.
Yeah. But otherwise,
there's other animals, not just bears.
but all your toiletries basically should be put in the bear canister, yes?
At night, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that bear canister, yeah, is 100 feet away from you if possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And never cook where you're going to sleep.
Right. How far away should you cook?
Oh, you should probably be about, probably 50 feet if you can do it. Yeah.
So away from camp.
Away from camp.
Yeah, because there'll be night visitors for sure.
Yeah, night critters. So, how about packing your pack? This took some, thinking about to do, but essentially when you are going to get ready to pack your pack, you're going to get all your gear together. You've already inventoried, you've already weighed everything. So you got your spreadsheet to track your gear, and I'll actually print my spreadsheet and I'll check off each item as I put it in my pack. So I know that I have it. Packs can be broken into 3 zones: the bottom, the core, the top. And then you have your peripheral storage as well. On the bottom of my pack, the first thing that goes into my pack when I'm packing my pack is my sleeping bag. It goes right in the very bottom of my main compartment. And then my sleep pad, and then any other sleep items, since I don't need them. They're not going to be something I'm going to pull out until I get to camp and start setting up my camp. Now with my pack, my tent, I have actually a pocket on the side of my pack, and that's where I put my tent. So my tent is on the outside of my bag, not the inside. On top of my sleeping system, I then drop my bear canister or my sack. So your denser, heavier items then would go into the core. I also would then put my stove and on top of the bear canister. And then if you're using a water reservoir, it would go in that typically the pack will have a sleeve in the back that water bladder would go into. And that would be kind of in the mid part of the pack. At the top of the pack, what I do is I have all of my extra clothing that my base layer and my mid layer and my jacket. I have those all that go. I have a little bag that I put them all inside of, and then I put those on top of at the very top of the pack on the inside. And then finally in the accessory pockets, like I said earlier, I have my little snacks. I'll always carry my sunscreen there. I carry one of those little sunbum sticks. I really like those so I can get it on my hands and my face easily. My bug or insect repellent, and my first aid bio bag. I actually put these, I have a mesh bag on the front of my bag, and I actually put these in the mesh bag on the front of my bag so I can get at them really fast if I need them. My Garmin device hangs on my shoulder strap, and my sunglasses, of course, I'm wearing those. So, yeah.
Questions.
Yeah. Question.
Talk a little bit about center of gravity in the pack, and do you ever fashion or lash or fasten something under the lid of the pack up top?
I don't, but I've seen people put their bear canisters up there.
Okay.
I have seen people carry their bear canisters under the lid of their pack because they've got and every pack is different. So it just depends on the pack system itself and what pack you've chosen. In terms of how that bear canister gets attached, that really is the biggest, bulkiest item that you will carry.
Mm-hmm.
And, but for me, it fits nicely inside of my pack. I typically don't put anything under the flap of my pack.
Okay.
I also carry a backpacking chair, and that's my luxury item. If I can, if the weight will allow it, I'll bring one of those little camp chairs. I love my little camp chair, but that's my luxury item.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the first thing to go if my weight's starting to hit the 31-pound limit.
Where do you fasten that?
I just put it I'll show you. I put it in this section of my pack.
Okay.
This is my pack. This is what I carry.
Yeah.
You can see I like this picture over here because these two show the different kind of compartments that this gossamer gear Mariposa has. I put my sundries in here because I like to have access to my meds in case I need them. Pain pills, that kind of thing. I have a little pouch that I carry them in. The first aid kit and my bio bag goes in here. And then my chair, I'll have one of those Heliox chairs. It'll go right here inside of here as well. My tent goes just like hers is. And I do carry an umbrella. And you can see she's carrying an umbrella as well. And then my water bottles go on this side. My two smart water bottles go right here. My water filter, that Kaden goes in this front pouch as well. Because I want to be able to get at that water filter really fast when I need to refill when I'm on trail. I don't want to have to open my backpack up and pull things out to get at the water filter. So the water filter's in this mesh bag at the front of my pack as well. So first aid kit, bio bag, and my water filter are in this compartment, along with my chair if I bring it.
Denise, if I may interpose, Marianne had to step away, but she wants everyone listening to know that the chapter is starting up a gear library. If you have gently used gear and like to donate to the gear library, email Marianne, and her address is in the chat.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And we want to have supplies for people who want to try backpacking without spending money on gear. So every year we have people that want to donate. We've been donating to UCR. Their biology department does field work, and that's what we've been doing the past couple of years. But we're going to start our own gear library. So talk to Marianne.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really, I had gone out. I had an osprey pack. I had a sleeping bag. I had a different air mattress. I had a different tent when we were getting ready to head out on the John Muir. And a month before, we had been doing training hikes, and realized that it wasn't going to work. Even the shoes got switched, and the water filter got switched because as you use the gear, you're going to learn what works and what doesn't work for you. And you want to be comfortable when you're out there, and you want to have fun,
Yeah.
and you don't want it to be like one and done. And
Hmm.
a lot of it has to do with the gear
Yeah.
and footwear for sure. So,
Yeah.
in terms of safety, plan your hike, share your plan, and then hike your plan.
Hmm. Hmm.
With bears, I've run across bears multiple times on trail and never had a problem with them. Of course, I don't hike where there's brown bears. That's just me. But
Hmm.
with the black bears, like you run into in the Sierra Nevadas, you just keep your distance, don't run, stand tall, shout, make yourself very present, make noise, and they tend to not want to be around you. They tend to stay away.
Hmm.
With other critters, the most important thing is with your food, keep it away from your sleeping area, keep your food in good, secure storage, sacks or bear canisters, and keep your cooking away from where you're sleeping. And then always check for bugs, check your shoes for bugs, and check your body for bugs.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can carry a little lightweight tick puller. And just stay aware
Hmm.
and make sure you not only know how to use your map and compass, but you know how to use your SOS communication device, be it your Garmin or your iPhone.
Who do you share your plan with?
With my family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and the nice thing is when the Garmin sends out the update or in the morning when I send the message, it sends a link along with it each time to the online site where my tracks are being mapped.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay, some things about hiking. Always uphill traffic has the right of way, so you're going to always want to yield to uphill traffic. A lot of people don't know this, and it's just one of those things you learn. Um, and sometimes even when I'm on trail and people are hiking with me, they're coming up the hill and they look like they probably haven't done a lot of hiking. I step out of the way and they'll say thank you, and I'll say, well, you're welcome, but uphill traffic has the right of way. So I use it as an opportunity to educate people as well.
Yeah.
Always try to camp on established sites. Again, keep your food prep away from your sleep area. Store all your food in animal resistant containers. And here you go, 30 yards minimum from the sleep area. And never put food or smellables inside your tent.
Hmm. Hmm.
So check your pockets sometimes, even on your backpack, sometimes you have food in your little hip belt pockets. Make sure you take those out before you retire for the night and have all of that food in your bear canister, and it's away from camp, or the sack is really tied nicely to a tree away from your campsite area.
Um, Denise, we had a prior question earlier in the presentation about camp etiquette.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about siting the camp, about being near water, how far, about washing dishes or washing things in camp, clothing items. Talk about some of those things, please.
So what we always have tried to do is 100 feet away from water, and the same with the trail. You also want, if there's other people in other camps, you want to be considerate of other people camping with their groups, and give yourself 100 feet plus away from any other, group camps or individual camps. If you're gonna wash up your socks or, anything else, you want to walk away from camp to do that and keep away from the water source so that it's not draining anywhere near camp or into the water source. Always use uh, minimal biodegradable soap, and again, keep it away from water sources in camp.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Okay.
even with your sleep areas, it's. I have a friend I hiked with and was pretty loud in terms of snoring, and so we always asked her to pitch your tent a little bit further away from everybody else, just because,
Mhm.
yeah, to help everybody with their sleep. Earplugs are a good thing. I don't like to wear earplugs when I'm camping because I like to hear what's out there.
Right,
So, but some people need them to sleep, and you got to have good sleep.
right,
Yeah.
right. Questions about kind of camp you camp routine for the individual and for the group. Some people like to kind of arrange some rocks in a circle and kind of eat together. Some people are more individualistic. What's your experience been? What do you prefer? Talk about your thoughts on this.
I think that just communicate what you like to do and respect each other's space.
Mhm.
If somebody needs some time to just be out there and enjoy the peace and the quiet and the silence, sometimes even while you're hiking, some people just like to have some time hiking where people aren't talking because they just like to listen to the sounds of the wilderness
Mhm.
and the noise of the wind going through the trees. So, it's, I think it's important to just be respectful of each person's individual needs.
Yeah.
And if you want to eat as a group, then join the group. But if you just need some time to be by yourself, that's okay too. As long as you don't wander away.
Mhm.
When you're with a group, you always want to make sure somebody knows where you are at all times.
Right,
Yeah,
right, right.
just for safety reasons.
Completely different question. Rain considerations and how you site your tent. Have you thought about do people think about that much in your experience? You know, if you were to have a sudden thunderstorm and how the water's going to pour through camp, about where you would put your tent.
Yeah, you always want to think about that. I actually did a beginner backpacking trip, and we actually had set up on some rocks, and inadvertently our tents were in some depressed areas, and a rainstorm came in, and we ended up being having to pick up our tents and move them. So it's a good thing to think about. How is the water going to run if it does start to rain heavily? Because you don't want your tent to turn into a boat.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And when we hiked up to, we did Whitney 2 years ago, and we did 3 days, 2 nights up there, and it did rain pretty heavily on us. And we were pretty good because we had picked a spot where the water would divert around us if it started to rain pretty heavily. And luckily we did that because we got that storm. And it came in hard, and it was a lot of rain in a short period of time.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm. Do you want to talk just for a second? I know you've already covered this under clothing, but rain gear.
um, well, I carry an umbrella, so that helps me a lot for both the sun and the rain. I have a really good rain jacket, but nothing unless you're wearing one of those that they wear up in Alaska. Nothing is 100% rain proof. But you want to invest in a good quality rain jacket and some rain pants. But initially, when you're going out there, you could probably get away with some frog togs.
Hmm.
And they're very inexpensive. And if it's a couple of days, you could get away with some frog togs.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, just see what works for you and you know, do your homework and research.
Right.
But sometimes I've seen people use rain ponchos.
Hmm.
And they work okay if if you've got a pack cover for your pack, or you've got a trash bag inside to keep your stuff dry. A poncho can work just fine for, a couple day hike.
Hmm.
But you definitely want some kind of rain gear.
Hmm. Hmm.
Make sure that poncho is big and can fit over you and your stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So it wouldn't be a Sierra Club, yeah, presentation without covering the 10 essentials.
That's right.
So here they are. Always have these things with you, whether it's a short hike or a long hike. Make sure you just check these off the list. I pretty much have covered all of these things. The one thing I do have that I take on little day hikes, I have a little bivy sack. It packs down into a really small little bag. And it's just my emergency shelter if and when I've never had to use it, but it's a good thing to know I have. And then leave no trace. Stay on the trail. Again, I want to reiterate it, always yield to the uphill traffic. Seek out those established campsites. It was amazing on the John Muir Trail. The campsites are so well established that it's almost like they're front side camping or something. But we never had to camp on a site that wasn't already used by somebody previously. But that's a pretty well trafficked trail. So try to camp on durable surfaces. If you pack it in, you have to pack it out. Be respectful of the wildlife that's out there and always be considerate of others. I like the last two in particular, take only pictures and leave only footprints. So how about getting ready for your trip? I did a lot of training, 3-4 times a week. I was out there hiking on the trails and did a couple of extended overnight trips up to Mount San Jacinto and Mount San Gorgonio prior to heading out on any of my week-long trips. You want to try to carry a couple of trips where you're carrying your full load just for even a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
And trying out your gear, making sure it all works, because it's better to swap it out after a 2-day trip than to head out on a 7 or 8-day trip with something that is not going to work for you. You want to do, like I said, 2 to 3 hikes per week and just load up your day pack, get some weight into it, try to get some elevation gain into your training. I'm right now doing Zanja Peak a couple, 3 times a week. That's 1,000 feet of elevation gain over 2.5 miles. That's a good little hike, 5 miles round trip to just, work on the conditioning. Practice putting on and taking off your pack as well. What I typically will do is I'll put my knee up or my leg up on a rock, set my pack on my thigh, and then I put one arm through my right hand strap, and then I kind of just use my leg to hoist that pack up onto my back. But you don't get any points taken off if you have somebody help you. And you can do that as well. If I'm hiking with somebody, I always make sure that their pack is on right, their straps are not twisted, their chest strap is secure, their hip belt is secure, their shoulder straps are nice and snug, and that they're ready to go before we head out for the day. So just check each other. I'm also a scuba diver, and so we always do that with scuba diving as well. You always check the gear before you jump into the wilderness. You want to have practice using your poles. Sometimes with me, I'll make my poles a little bit longer on the downhill than the uphill. Just helps take that impact off of my knees. You want to strengthen your legs. I do weight training with my legs at the gym. And then you want to always stay aware. Stay aware of your surroundings and make sure you know where your hiking buddies are as well. And if you get in front of them, you can stop and give them time to catch up. And that's it.
Questions? I have questions for you.
Okay.
What is your regimen to prep using maps, guidebooks, apps? I presume that you study your route pretty carefully.
Yes, I do. I like all trails.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like Gaia, but I really like all trails. I've used it a lot. I used Far Out as well when I did the JMT.
Mm-hmm.
But and if it's a trail that doesn't have a route, like in all trails, you can, if you search, a lot of the trails are already mapped in there, and the distances aren't exact, but they're close. And I've actually been in situations with all trails where I have been in snow where you cannot see the trail. And it has worked perfectly in terms of mapping out the direction that we needed to head in order to get back to our cars. So yeah, it all trails works really, really well, actually. Um, the Garmin also works well as in terms of tracking your progress and your distances and that sort of thing. I always carry a map so I know where I am and refresh my maps and compass skills before I go out.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Um, this has just been outstanding.
Oh, thank you.
And we really appreciate your time, Denise. And it couldn't be more timely because we're getting ready for our first backpacking trip on June 12th, so less than a month away. And then yours on solstice, which is a month away, on June 21st. So this is just really, really informative and timely. Um, and you're getting some nice comments here in the chat thanking you for the really complete um, presentation. I really appreciate it on behalf of the Outings program. So, John, comments, Carla, comments.
I
Well,
think,
and I have my email address here, and if you would like me to email you a copy of my Google spreadsheet, and
Yes.
or if you would like me, like I've done for everybody on my trip, um, I can send it to you. I am more than happy to do that. You can see what gear I have, what I have to, where I have settled in terms of my gear, and you can see what each piece of equipment weighs because, that's what I have done. And I'd be more than happy to share that with anybody that would like to have a copy of my spreadsheet.
Yeah, send it to me, Denise, julianne.anderson@gmail.com, and I can send it out to the outings leaders.
Okay.
Um, so they can see that because I think we're going to be getting more and more people wanting to do these backpacking trips because I mean this is just great preparation. It gives us a really good idea about how we prepare and do it intelligently. John, you were going to say something?
well, I was, but I'm going to say something else. I see a comment here from someone, it doesn't say their name, says, thank you so much. Please send out the spreadsheet. And maybe what I could do, if I have a copy of the spreadsheet, I can send it out to all the people who registered.
Oh,
Right.
okay. I can send it to you easy.
Yeah,
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
The other thing I was going to say is I'm going to stop the recording because this is a really long one.
Oh,
Yeah.